All right, guys. Good morning. I'm really excited today. We have a really great guest. We have Carlos Rivers and his wife, Tatiana. Carlos just joined the mastermind. He's part of Jake and Gino also, which is awesome. Can't wait till we get started. But we have Tatiana, who's going to do a great presentation for us today on some marketing and other topics. So go ahead, take it away, Tatiana.
Yeah, it's nice to meet everyone. I'm very excited to be here. I like it to be conversational. So if you guys have any questions in between, or if I'm getting too technical, let me know. I also have Venus here with me, part of my team. She has a little bit more background on she's the director of product at our team. And so she is behind all of the accreditations for Google and all that kind of stuff, right? So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen and begin with just an introduction about myself and what we're going to be talking about today. Okay. Can everyone see my screen?
Yeah. Oh, yes.
Okay, awesome. So we're going to be talking a little bit about digital marketing and the best practices. And just to begin, so you guys have an idea of what are we going to be talking about today. So basics of a strong strategy. When I say that, I mean like a strong digital marketing strategy, right? The marketing funnel. This is a little bit of a term that we invented internally, and I'll go ahead and touch base when we get there. Consistency, which is going to be huge, especially for real estate investors. Digital marketing in general. So what are the things inside digital marketing? How to budget for digital marketing, and then any additional resources. So if at any point during the conversation you guys have questions, go ahead and do the raise hand and let's make it conversational. So a little bit about myself. You can see my family on the left, Carlos, who is joining us today in the call. I am the owner partner of Hite Digital Dallas, and I am currently the VP and co-founder of Hite Creative. Hite Digital Dallas is a digital marketing agency focused on ROI. So we make sure that your investment makes sense and that you're actually seeing a return, right? And then Hite Creative was launched this year and focuses more on the branding side of it. So developing brands, logos, websites. Currently at Hite Digital, we have about 12 offices in the US, more than 55 Google specialists. We serve over 50 industries, have about 140 employees, and we have a yearly ad spend of about 8 million. A little bit about myself. I have a master's in marketing and an undergrad in visual communications. And then we have a niche, obviously myself, in design and marketing. So combining those two to create strategies. And you know, a fun fact, I am committed to supporting female empowerment. So I'm all about joining female empowerment groups and speaking for girls who want to go back to college, or moms, or anything like that. So that's a little bit about myself. Now I'm going to tell you a little bit about Hite Digital itself, and I'll be brief here, but I think it's important, and I love to touch base here because part of our excellence comes from focusing on the people that work with us. We call them teammates, right? Nobody at our company is an employee. We're all teammates. We focus on that by growing people. And just some fun fact over here, 47% of our employee income increased in the last year within the pandemic, and we have a 97% job growth. Now, going back to the fun subjects, right? Main pillars of a strategy. So we're going to be touching base on audience, goals and consistency. And forgive me for my bilingual pronunciations there. So the first thing is an audience, right? So when we're looking at digital marketing, understanding your audience, who, what, and why. I am a fast talker too. So if anyone feels like I'm talking too fast, let me know in the comments. The first thing is, who are you communicating to, right? So as real estate investors, this is really important, especially because when we're looking at real estate investment, there's so many different aspects that can be, whether you're looking for another investor, how do we make that message work, and what are the venues in which we can communicate it to them? Who are we competing against, right? So who are the other real estate investors that are also looking for opportunities? And what are you trying to tell them, right? So the message itself is going to be very important. And I know that at Jake and Gino, this is a really important thing, right? How we present ourselves and the values that we are communicating through the importance of the message. But why is this important? So it is important because we have different types of audiences that are listening to the message. And if we're targeting an audience that wouldn't resonate with our message, then we're really wasting our money, right? And so it's going to be important that we attract and identify who we're wanting to talk to. We already know that some people will not resonate with the message we're throwing out there. And so it makes a huge importance that we begin with the audience to make sure that we tackle down that and we understand that we're not wasting whether it is digital marketing efforts or any type of marketing that we're doing on audiences that would just throw it away, right? Everyone good so far? Thumbs up. Yeah, awesome. Okay. So defining your strategy, what and how. I think this is one of the areas where there's much more of an opportunity every time that we are meeting with potential clients, right? So what do you want to achieve? Sometimes this will be very obvious, and sometimes it can be a combination. Brand recognition, for example, is one of the hardest ways to track ROI because it's a long-term investment. But it is important. And so sometimes you can combine either brand recognition with, for example, increasing a database, right? And the beauty about digital marketing is that you can track most everything, except like I just said, brand recognition, this is a little bit more long-term. So defining what are we wanting to accomplish short-term and long-term is really going to define the strategy that we're going to put in place. So if I'm talking to a real estate investor that's into single family, for example, and I know most of you are more into multifamily, they're probably going to want to look into sellers, right? Single family sellers. So the strategy there is going to be different. However, when we're looking at real estate investors that are moving into multifamily, it's going to be a little bit more brand recognition and building that presence. And what does your website look and what does it say? But most importantly, identifying areas of opportunity where we can track the engagement, such as, well, increasing an investor database or a newsletter, right? And so how do we achieve this? We call this the marketing funnel. The marketing funnel is divided into two sections. We have the digital footprint, which is on the left over here, and it begins with branding and web development. So this is where a lot of people will begin, whether they're starting a business or they're becoming investors right now, starting up, because it's very important that we kind of set those pillars for the foundation, right? And then we do the lead generation, which goes into PPC, Facebook ads, SEO, and depending, like I said here on it doesn't let me go back. But if you go back to the slide before, and we were talking about defining the goal, right? Depending on the goal, then different types of services within the marketing funnel will work and some will not. Because, for example, somebody selling, we have seen that in certain aspects of industries, Facebook ads will not have a great return on investment, right? And this comes between a combination of us already doing this often and understanding different industries, right? So the secret of a strong brand consistency. I created these 4 things that I believe are kind of the base of a strong brand consistency. Fonts and voice, colors, images, and materials. And we're gonna dive into what they mean, right? So fonts and voice. The voice and the fonts that you utilize can dictate your brand's persona, expertise, brand strategy, and professionalism. This is very interesting because a lot of times we don't think a lot about the fonts that we use. But if you see in the example, and I like being a little funny, you'll see that the font will change how it makes you feel, right? And so a lot of times the fonts we select will make us look either more professional or less professional or maybe more welcoming. Now, this is where it's important to work with someone who has a background in design because they're actually trained to understand the different ways in which typography is created so that it reflects certain aspects of the brand that you're wanting to communicate. When I met with the ladies at Jake and Gino, one of them said, well, I want my brand to be different. I want it to communicate friendliness. I don't want it to be super corporate. And sometimes that can be communicated just by selecting the right font. So as you can see here, this is another great example, right? It looks a little more serious on the left. So depending on what we're wanting to communicate, the font will really dictate that direction. Colors is a huge one. Why is it so important? Colors is important because it can be used to communicate things subliminally, like gender, personality, values, and culture, right? So understanding the psychology of colors, we can dive into how can we actually communicate the importance of what we're trying, right? So taking it back to the message, who's our audience? And this is very, very important because a big part of it too that sometimes is missed is our competition. So we had a real estate agent who came to us and she wanted to rebrand. She was in Arizona. And one of the things that she said was, I don't want to look like my competition, but let's do red. I love red. And we looked at the competition and everyone's using red. And so one of the things that we said was, let's look at color. I think that's how we can differentiate yourself. And we ended up creating a brand that was very local to Arizona, and super different to all of the other real estate investors. Color is also sometimes missed, but it really can differentiate yourself from competitors and communicate things without us knowing. Maybe not intentionally. Most of the time, though, if you work with a professional team, it's going to be intentional, right? Just a couple of things here. Blue, the website you're seeing is Nick's. My team and I have been working on it. The color we selected was a light blue. Blue is usually the color of trust. So when meeting with him, one of the things he said was, I want to resonate with trust and, something that looks serious, but also welcoming. So we selected a lighter tone of blue.
Tatiana, I just want to bring up something you said that very good, that I talk about when I'm attracting money, not raising it. It's very similar into what you're doing is the psychology of it, the colors that you said have with the same thing in attracting money. I don't know if I'm doing it right. That's why I'm excited about today, because this helps me maybe change my website. I don't want to sell investments, that we build relationships, and I want to show, like I told your husband, more family, and we're not like selling, we really are building these relationships. So once they do invest, they're not just investors. I'm not getting mass investors. I want my website and everything I do to portray that, because they're really turning into family, these people, So I think that was really important what you said. It ties into both.
Yeah, I love that you mentioned that, because there's different ways. One of the things that's important is when you're wanting to define that direction, and that would be more of like a strategy direction, right? Because you're building relationships. And so there's different ways in which you can communicate that. It can be through photography and video. It can also be on the voice and the way that it's written throughout the website. It can be on the colors, can also communicate that. It's a little bit more subliminal, right? Red, for example, is a color that's usually very rough and strong, and like it dictates like a little bit of aggressiveness. And so depending on the industry as well, it's going to be important that we consider, if we're wanting it to feel more warm, then look at colors that are going to resonate like that subliminally. And by the way, if we have investors that are international, colors have different meanings in different countries, and no surprise there, right? But it's going to be important that we consider that if we're targeting people from other different countries.
Yeah, and the thing is about the colors, like you said, you got to be careful, because you want it warm and whatever, but you also want confidence. But maybe you don't want that red that's a very aggressive, but you want something that will subliminally with the warm and welcoming, but also because we're in a space where if I'm hanging out with somebody who makes $5 million a year, I also have that confidence aspect also. So you gotta like really research it and see what works.
Yeah, absolutely. It's important to consider those things, because when you merge them together, right? The color, the font, those are little details that we sometimes miss, that when together combined, they're going to really resonate or not with what you're trying to accomplish. Another thing that goes there is images. So here are some things that I would suggest to avoid. So avoid using different types of images. When I say different types, I mean, so these are vectors, images that are a little bit more like illustrations. And then those that look very, very stock images, right? Avoid using anything that looks like it has an illustration inside combined with a photo. Now, the main thing here, though, is not to mix too many types of images. So if you have illustrations, use mostly illustrations. If you have photography of buildings, use mostly photography of buildings. So having that consistency through photography is going to make it look less generic and more like there's a complete and concise brand. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so make sure you have the basics as well. Here's an example of Carlos's real estate for single family. When we were doing single family with him, we have now moved into a new rebrand for his multifamily and real estate investors. But just to give you an example of how that consistency looks like, right? So we have the logo, the business cards, informational flyer, social media banners, the website. So when you look at it on different, and this is the importance, right? If I put it here on the slide, you guys are like, yeah, obviously that looks like the same brand. However, what's important here is that if I am somebody that receives this business card, and then I go into the website, that I feel like I'm not leaving a different place, that I feel like I am within the same person, company, or brand, right? And that's what consistency is all about. Building that trust about long-term visibility of who you are wanting to communicate. And one thing to touch base, no, it's not letting me go back again. But one thing to touch base there is that it's important that you define what's important to you, right? It might not be important to you to have a one-page flyer. And that will be dictated by the audience and what you're trying to communicate and achieve, right? So digital marketing, moving into digital marketing. Why should you do digital marketing? Digital marketing increases your business online. It gathers data. To me, honestly, gathering data is the biggest one here. Just the importance on how users will be gathering, you will be gathering the data as they navigate through your website, but it also builds your digital footprint. So a lot of times I will talk with people who say, I already have, too many investors. I don't need anyone coming to my website. The reality is that at some point, just having that presence is going to build to your brand. And having that brand buildup is really going to resonate with the direction you want to take. Now, again, if that's the only thing you want to do, if you just want to reach 5 investors and that's it, then maybe, yeah, building your digital footprint is not as important. But in the long term, in the digital market that we compete in right now, it's very important that we start to build that little by little. So understanding your audience and how they live within the digital landscape. And what does this really mean? So there's 3 different types of digital marketing channels. We have the paid, the owned, and the earned. For paid, we have pay-per-click ads, so Google ads. We have affiliate marketing, display marketing, and I'll go into them briefly. For owned, we have things like websites, Facebook pages, email lists, blogs. To be honest with you, there's really no weight between one and the other. But to me, if you ask me, I would say owned. At least you need to definitely have that, because a website, you own it, right? A website, the data that's coming in, you own it. Facebook page, how many people are following, all of that you own. Email list is something valuable that you can also own, whether you move into a different strategy. And I've talked to some investors who began, and my husband being one of them, who began in single family investments and are now moving into multifamily. And so certain types of email list would really work as they move into that space, right? A blog is really important because it also helps with your SEO, and it's something organic that you can be managing in your website. And earned could be organic mentions such as posts, third-party blogs, and articles. So earned is usually any other website or company that mentions you or person that tags you, anything like that is earned, okay?
I just wanted to add, Marco, I mean, your brand is a great example of earned, right? How your team posts, how you guys are tagging each other. There's no cost involved. It's all organic, right? And I think you guys have built such a good presence with that. Brian is also a good example of earned brand recognition.
What we teach in the mastermind is support also on Facebook. And I teach how, like, a simple, give a like or a comment to help it trend. And we support each other in sharing posts to get that earned. I didn't even tell them. I learned a new word today. It's earned organic. But that's what we do teach, that to help, instead of just doing the paid ads, to show, like, listen, if you do this, it'll help you get that organic earned. And yeah, and it really works. I did a post with Justin. He did a quick hit, and I put it up. I didn't even boost it or Facebook or whatever. He shared it. I shared it. Other people shared it. A lot of likes, a lot of comments. We had 3 people sign up to the mastermind from that free ad, $18,000, $20,000. I didn't do anything. It was just a free post. Because that earned organic, we learned how to like and comment and make it trend, created such a buzz, and it's social proof. The people saw the value in the post. I didn't have to pitch them. So yeah, it's takes a lot of work, and you got to work as a team. That's why we have this mastermind. When Carlos, you put, like, Justin put, Bill Hamill put up a post his closing. I'll share his post to passive active. Then I'll share it to my page. Then I'll share it to my Insta, and we all support each other to get some earned, because you don't want to just work on that paid advertisement. Yeah.
Yeah, and one thing I want to add there, guys, is that one of the things that I love about Jake and Gino, and we have this at Hite Digital too, is when you're with the right people, the earned is much easier to achieve, because you're with people who care and actually support your growth and not just theirs, right? And so earned is all about creating an online community that will support one another, having the right values, right? And it's important, but it's hard if you don't find the right people.
And Tatiana, I believe in everything. I believe in also paid. Like when I boost a post, or if I have somebody like you, I believe the earned and the paid goes hand in hand. So they got to work both hand in hand. Once you got that trending and you have the right person behind you also paid, it really works hand in hand.
Yes. I will say that I am not a super fan of boosting posts, because when you're boosting posts, usually what you're doing is, in traditional marketing, let's say, it's similar to printing a flyer and displaying it in your building. So it's when you're boosting posts, you're boosting it within your own community, which is people who usually already resonate or know. Unless it's an internal offer, I would recommend moving away from boosting posts and doing more like paid ads through Facebook, which is, it's just a different, Facebook is very complex. I don't know why they made it so difficult, but there's a different side of it, which is business Facebook, and that's where you would do the ads. So a little bit about best practices for your website. Here are some really interesting things. Definitely having it mobile optimized. And these are things that when we look at audits, right, because we do free audits for anyone looking at digital marketing strategies, the mobile optimization is going to be huge, because a lot of people don't really take that into consideration. And most users are coming to websites through their phone. We know that the user experience and the user journey to purchase or take an action begins on the phone. Conversion elements, and this is a recommendation for everyone here, have your phone number at the top, right? And the contact forms with easy access. Depending on the industry, we have seen that having a contact form or a call to action at the top is going to convert faster. Obviously, it needs to make sense, right, with the content that we're displaying. Social media linking is going to be important and make it personal. So this is something that we were talking about earlier, how we need to add pictures of like our families, and it really depends, or it's dictated depending on the strategy that we're wanting to take. If we want to make it personal, definitely, you know, depending on the type of people you want to attract, making it personal will look differently. But how can I measure performance on my website, right? This is the most important thing. I can have all these beautiful things, but how do I know who's clicking? Well, definitely make sure that you're connected to Google Analytics. This is something that I have seen often that people are not aware on how. This is free. It's from Google. And it lets you know a lot of things about your website. In fact, if anyone here has a website and is yet not connected to analytics, it is my recommendation that this is the first thing you do, because once you have your website out there, it's gathering data. And if we're not connected to analytics, that data is lost. And so one of the things that you can see is how many people are coming to your website, what landing pages they're going to, what does their navigation look like? Websites are a little bit of an ongoing process, right? And so with analytics and data gathering, we can actually make decisions to change things. So I was meeting with a client the other day and he said, let's have a lead magnet at the top of my form. And one of the things they said was, well, we're not sure if we want it there or in the corner or in another page. And I said, let's try it out. Let's put it at the top of the form and let's look at data. Let's let it run for a month and let's see if anyone's clicking, or if people are clicking there and going back, or if the bounce rate of the website is higher. And what that means is are more people leaving the site, right? We want our bounce rate to be low. So those are some things about analytics. Anyone have questions about Google Analytics here? No? Okay. Best practices for your SEO. So here are some best practices, and I'll share this presentation with everyone. Aligning your content to the search intent. This is huge because a lot of times what we forget is that SEO is all about making sure that you are connected to the type of words that people would be typing for, right? So if I go into Google and I say, I want to find a real estate partner for investments, we want to make sure that our content is resonating with that type of search. We want to optimize for that search as well. What does that mean? When I go into Google and I look at the search, right, and the different options, we want to make sure that that matches what's actually inside that landing page. And Google has different ways of determining between your website being relevant or irrelevant to the types of searches. So that's going to be important. Optimize your page speed. That's going to be huge as well. A lot of people will be, sorry, I'm reading yes, I will be sharing the presentation. Ooh, what's going on here? Okay. Okay. So improve the user experience of your website. This point right here is going to be connected to your analytics. So it's going to be important because you can only improve the experience of your website, understanding how the user is navigating through it, right? And the only way to do that is by looking at the analytics. Include keywords on your URL. And what I mean that is, let's say you have riverspartners.com. And then if you're having an investment page, riverspartners.com/investors. Sometimes the website will be built in a way that the link will just be very long and irrelevant to what's actually inside. So that's going to be important. And focus on building a backlinking strategy. This is going to be big, but just so you guys know, there's 3 different types of SEO strategies. And the different ways, what we do here at Hite is that we define it by 3 different stages. We have visibility, acquisition, and engagement. So one of the things that we do is we want to make sure that you're, for example, if you tell me, well, I've been doing SEO for years, then maybe you're in a different stage, right? But there's also different ways in which Google can rank you, and they can also take away your website if you're doing things that are called black hat strategies. So sometimes very, let's call them affordable SEO strategies will use black hat strategies in order to get you ranking faster. But at the end of the day, SEO is the process of improving your site to increase visibility when people search for products or services related to your business on Google, Bing, and other search engines. Oops. Okay, but how can I measure the performance of SEO? So although we do have analytics, we can also measure the performance of SEO looking at things like total clicks, right? People calling you. We can track calls. We can track engagement on the website itself. We can actually look at different things and optimize them. Are people visiting your website staying long enough? So things like that are things that we would be attributing more to SEO practices and tracking to measure SEO performance. What pages of your website are doing better? So we could see, for example, that if you have the intention on your website to get people to the About Us page, and when we look at analytics, people are going to the Contact Us and they're really just bouncing out and nobody's contacting you, then something needs to change on the homepage because it's not directing them in the right direction. So what are paid ads? What are paid ads? Paid ads display on search engine results, right? So the difference between paid ads and organic is that once you stop paying for them, you stop ranking on Google. You have seen probably when you go on Google and you search best pizza location that you see restaurants pop up and at the left it says ad. Those are ads. And once that company stops paying for the ads, they're going to stop ranking. And you can select different things such as locations, search terms, interests, demographics, and previous purchases or pages visited. Now, the importance here is that they're scalable, especially for PPC, right? Which are Google ads. They are highly measurable. So there's so many things we can measure of paid ads that makes it much easier to make optimizations to make sure that we're reaching the right audience. The results are generally obtained faster than organic efforts. So organic efforts would be more like SEO or mentions. The reason being that it takes a little bit longer to build on really good SEO strategies. So we call them easier than SEO because they can get results faster. Traffic tends to convert better than other source mediums. You probably have heard this before. There's a lot of times where people say it's better to advertise on Google than do it on Facebook, right? The reason behind it, and by the way, it depends on the industry and the strategy you're using, is that a lot of times when people go into Google, they go with the intention to make a purchase. They go with the intention to do a search on a purchase they already want to make. And so it's much easier to convert that traffic than converting anything like Facebook ads. If you guys have navigated through Facebook, most of the time you are not on Facebook thinking about making a purchase, right? And so traffic from Facebook is usually more irrelevant. Now, it doesn't mean that it doesn't convert, but it's a little bit harder to bring in relevant traffic is what we call. Okay, so a couple of really interesting best practices. Let me see what's going on here. Sorry, guys. Sometimes my computer likes to not go on the last slide. And this is a good slide. So best practices of PPC. It's going to be important that we do A/B testing. This is going to be huge because that way we can segment campaigns by ads, and we can actually know what's working, right? So we want to make sure that we avoid smart campaigns. There's too many restrictions. We also don't want to mix different keywords. So by segmenting, you're actually targeting different groups and trying to see what works and what doesn't. For example, we may be looking at female real estate investors, right? And then male real estate investors. And we may also segment them by age. And by running them on different segmentations, we can actually see what's working and what's resonating with them or not. We could test them. We can actually do images of families and maybe see that that's going to resonate better with a certain group or an age group, right? So maybe we're getting more leads from the age group of 30 to 37, female and male, when we use family pictures, for example. Build a strong negative keyword, especially this is going to be huge, especially for everyone in this call. Why? Because a lot of times we can get mixed real estate investment and opportunities multifamily with like real estate agents. And so you're competing with, if you do it wrong, you're competing with an audience where you're just wasting your money, right? If you're doing any type of advertisement. So building negative keywords that are going to allow for your ads to be segmented with the right audience is going to be huge there. And keep an ads based on performance. What does that mean? It means that if your campaign one, ad group 1A is not resonating and is just wasting money, make sure you change it. Don't waste your money there. Now, one thing important is it takes time, right? Run your ads, and optimizing is going to be important, which means change the copy or change the images if it's not getting that return on investment. But most importantly, give it some time, because digital ads will take some time. Now, the value behind social media ads, right? Hear from customers, access real-time conversations, establish credibility. I think for you guys here, this one's going to be really big on establishing that credibility and also building on that, that group and that support. Develop a community, also really big here. And building brand awareness. So by combining all of the ones on top, you build brand awareness. And that's going to be on the long term, one of the biggest impacts we can have. So best practices of Facebook ads. Apply retargeting strategies. We have seen that our best ads perform where we're retargeting people who come to our website. That's going to be huge. We also create lookalike audiences. And that means anyone who has purchased from us in the past or become a member or joined our community, Facebook creates lookalike audiences, so people with similar profiles that match the profiles of our database of partners, customers, community members, to make sure that it also resonates with the same audience. But Facebook also has the ability to, yes?
Tatiana, I just wanted to add, so imagine Marco's database, right? Taking all the emails in his database and then using that to find similar audiences within Facebook, right? It will always be a better strategy than just filtering. So that's just an example of how you can use your investor database today.
Correct. Yes. And there's different ways, depending on, again, like the first couple of slides, what are we wanting to achieve? Are we wanting to get more people to join the community? So then that's a different type of strategy, right? Are we wanting to get more brand recognition? So that's a different type of strategy. But one really big thing is make sure that if you do run any ads on Facebook, that you have Facebook pixels embedded in every landing page of your website. That's going to be important so that you're actually tracking the data the way it should be tracked. Consider a CRM system. So this is going to be important. There's different ways, and I know that a lot of you are using CRM systems, but one of the most important things here is that, especially as you're building this, for example, sending out deals to different partners or opportunities, there can be a follow-up optimization that can really ease all of the manual work that a lot of investors do nowadays. For example, sending voice notes right after you send a newsletter and automizing that process and what that looks like. Here's a graph that I like to touch base on the different services, right? So one thing that I like to say, especially for real estate investors, SEO would be one of the best services to look at or to implement. And like I said, for best practices, you guys can start doing blogging or making sure that you're optimizing your metadata and making sure that you're connected to analytics. SEO is a long, it's an exponential increase compared to the other services. The other services are a little bit more static. And why is that? Because once you stop paying for them, your website is no longer relevant. One of the questions that I get asked often when I create websites is, hey, we build our website and when I look for it on Google, it's not there. It's on the page 27. And that's because getting it on page 1 is part of an SEO ongoing service, right? Why is that? Because there's a lot of things that we need to do on the back end to make sure that it starts ranking. So SEO begins on page 27, and then you're on page 1, which is where you see the exponential increase in growth. Here's a little bit about budgeting. So internally for us, one of the things that we do in terms of budgeting is that our ideal traffic requirement is about 10 clicks per day with a minimum of 150 clicks a month. And now these are minimums, right? We look at different types of keywords that we think are relevant, and we do our research based on that. So we look at average monthly searches, competition. I know that for real estate investors, competition is very high. This is an example of a client that we had previously, and we were looking at pest control keywords, but one of the things that we do is we actually recommend a budget. So based on the areas that you're going to be targeting, for example, we know that keywords in Dallas for real estate investors they're very expensive. And so we can tell you, hey, any other marketing agency that tells you that you need $200 in order to compete, they're lying. We know from data and experience that you need this number as a minimum in order to start competing. How does that work? The way it works with Google Ads is that it's like a bidding strategy, right? And so based on how much your team is bidding on that keyword, you will appear or not in the search. And so that's why it's important to have a competitive budget that allows the team to bid enough in order for you to start winning the biddings. So a little bit like
I would say,
Mhm.
Tati, I would say if you don't have a competitive budget, then you're just throwing your money away, correct? So if someone tells you use $500, but that market is $3,000, if you're putting $500, you're just throwing your money away because you're not competing in that bidding strategy.
Correct. And what I would say there is a lot of times there's, for example, it's a lot about trial and error. And that's the scary thing about digital marketing, because there's different industries, and digital marketing changes very often. It's very dynamic. It changes by industry. It changes by seasonality. It changes by trends. So there's a lot of ways in which you can organically look at that and what it looks like for you right now. So a strategy that a marketing agency could give you today may not be the same strategy 6 months from now when you decide to move forward, because there's a lot of things that influence what could be changing, right? Free resources, Google Trends will actually give you a little bit of trends on searching volume of different types of keywords. So if you go to Google Trends, we actually have the ability to look at, for example, in the month of October, very little people are looking for investment or looking for selling their homes. And so that way we know that the budget can be lower there. Now that's something that we usually recommend, but that's how we base it on. I did see here in the questions, what are a couple of top CRM systems for real estate professionals to consider? And we have Salesforce and HubSpot. We actually also launched Hite CRM internally, and we have experience creating automation of follow-up systems for different types of investors.
Yeah, like for example, when I was doing single family, they simply developed a marketing campaign where a voicemail drop went first, then text messaging. Depending on how they would answer, or if they answered my form, they would get another message, right, leading them to qualify that potential seller. By the time it would get to me, that seller was already qualified. Therefore, it was a better lead than someone that doesn't fill out the form.
Yeah. So depending on what you're wanting to achieve through the CRM, it can be built into a personal process. For example, for Carlos, one of the things that we know based on our experience with real estate investors is that having voice notes from the person is going to convert more. And so we asked them to send us a couple of voice notes, and we integrated that into the process. So this is my final slide. One of the things that I wanted to give you on the left is free resources. If you guys do have a website or are considering building a website, hosting on SiteGround, one of the things that is usually asked is, what's the difference between hosting and my domain and my website builder? And there's 3 different things. What we use for website builders is WordPress. If you guys are looking at Wix or comparing it with any other type of platforms, I would recommend WordPress, just because that's going to allow for your SEO to grow faster rather than other platforms like Wix, because it's a little bit of an open source, right? SiteGround, we use it internally to host websites. It has a low cost unless you're paying for maintenance. And then also for domains, we use GoDaddy. Most of the investors that I have spoken to use GoDaddy
Tatiana,
as well.
can I add something?
Yeah.
When you're considering like Wix, WordPress, think about scale, guys. You know, when you start, it might be just for landing pages, but think about when you start adding your portfolio or you want to integrate with your CRM or with your investor portal. Think about when you scale, and WordPress is probably the best resource that you have available.
Yeah, Carlos, that's important. I remember because I did my website a long time ago for the restaurant and from then when I did it for multifamily, and he didn't use the right technology that like the best one out, like WordPress, whatever. And guys, what he pointed out is great. On your journey, everybody's journey is different. So she's talking all about marketing and SEO. Like Carlos said, if you're just starting out and you just want like that one page website, like just like a business card, just set it up the right way for 3 years from now when you do scale, that it's easily, if the person that set it up for you, you're not using them, it can easily be handed over to the new person and they could just jump on and use that WordPress. Because if that it's not set up right, that new person's going to have to shut the site down, redo the whole site and use what they got to use. So try and find out I'm not good at that, but I have a web guy who does that. Like, and he makes sure I can use somebody else now. Like, so use the right stuff. And I think in the mastermind, we're showing how it doesn't matter where your journey is. If you want to start out with a simple web page, a lot of people like Francesca just built a great one. Carlos is we just had Carlos's call, is an awesome one. Even if you just want to start out with that simple one pager, and then as you grow, the web page grows. So as you close a deal or as you do something, you start an article or a monthly newsletter, you grow. Yeah.
One thing I want to add there is a lot of times we have clients who come to us and whoever built their website used their own account, or it's a big, huge thing that you have ownability of anything you build. And that means if you're connected to analytics, make sure it's your analytics. If you're building your website, make sure you get your credentials as an admin to your website. That's something that we like to do with anything we build, whether it is ads, analytics, or website. One of the things that we do as well is we have a ready to launch website where they're built and you can actually look at, select different templates that we actually personalize them to you, right? Okay, so another thing, project communication management, we use Slack. So that's just important. You can build a community there as well. Huge Calendly. I know that a lot of you have been using Calendly on your website, and Carlos just did a link to his website that we built right now. You'll see that it says book a meeting. And when you click there, it goes to his Calendly. This is going to be huge because there's a lot of call to action that is important to have in there. And when we have that available and easy for the user, it entices them more to take that action. Google Slides, this slide that you're seeing here is a Google slide. It's very easy if I want to take it in my computer, do it on my phone, share it with you guys. So I always recommend that. And then obviously overall branding consistency. So another question that I get asked is, how do I make sure that I'm using my email that has the domain of my website, and then that there's consistency behind that as well? So Google Suites is a great solution there. It helps with email consistency, so you can have your domain, calendar consistency as well. So it's all integrated under one, right? And you're not using your Gmail for your calendar to booking, and then another thing here. And then obviously the domain and email have to be matching. So one thing I want to offer is for the first 5 people that give me their email on the comments, we will integrate your analytics to your website if you don't already have it. Free, happy to do it. Our team is, it's going to be valuable. So we also do, yep. And that's all I have, guys.
So Tatiana, I'll ask him. So, when you get into depth about SEO and all, sometimes people aren't ready, but because sometimes people feel intimidated. If somebody has no website, because my friend actually, he's too busy now and he's like you, he used to do websites, but he doesn't get into that. He gets into different stuff with him. Do you build the websites? Do you do stuff like that?
Yeah. So one of the things we do is we have 2 different types of websites. We have one that's called Ready to Launch. So anyone who's wanting to get something out there, Karthip is actually one of our clients who did a Ready to Launch. So there's 2 options there. There's already a template built and you personalize it. You get to select your images from our Shutterstock account. And then we can either create the content for you or you can do the content yourself, right? And those are ready in 2 weeks. The other option is a personalized custom build website. That's what Carlos did. And what we do there is that we go through a process. It takes about a month. It's a little bit more personalized. The ready to launch websites are that they're ready to launch, right? So you can't really manipulate the way it's built, but it's built for real estate investors. And so we have templates specifically for real estate investors.
Okay, good. That's excellent. So basically from everything from branding to SEO to websites, and marketing, it's whatever the person wants. Guys, if you want to reach out to, even if you're in the beginning of your journey, reach out to her, even if you're just starting out, and it doesn't have to be the advanced. You can start out simple and reach and ask her questions. And I'm glad we have somebody who does websites, because the person that does mine, he's excellent, but he's just too busy. And I like to have somebody in the group, that they could talk to about it. I really appreciate you going over stuff today. I actually learned stuff. Before we jump off, I have one question. I want your opinion. I started to learn about branding, and I have a friend who teaches me. When I launched, I'm going to tell them what I did, and then I want you to see if I did a good job. Let me stop share. Oh, if you can stop share.
Yeah. Sorry.
Okay. I don't know if you see. So I launched a marinara sauce company. So the whole idea behind it was I knew nothing about branding. So I'm the chef, right? But my friend like you has a company, and I was going to call it Gino's Trattoria Marinara or Chef Marco Barbaro's to me. So I didn't think about it. But guys, just to open your minds up about multifamily branding and branding, was what my friend did was, my father is from Italy, immigrated here. He started out in Brooklyn. He cooked in a little restaurant. It was like a little mafia type restaurant. Then at age 35, he opened up his own restaurant. So I branded it the right way with him. Just like I don't sell investments, I build relationships, we create family. I'm not selling marinara sauce. I'm selling family, because I have a story behind it. So what we did was we put my father on the front. We didn't call it Gino's Trattoria Marinara, which everybody thinks that you should do that, right? We call it, my friend thought about it, came up with like 10 names. He named it Vito's Finest. I didn't like the name in the beginning. I'm like, Vito's Finest. My dad's name is Vito. I didn't like the word. You know what? Then you keep saying it. And it's like Yosef, my brosef. It's like Joey DTS. Okay. So I said, let it sink in. This is very important to me. I said, I don't know if I like it, Then I let it sink in, and I said, you know what? I'm going to tie it the right way to Gino's Trattoria. So we called it Vito's Finest. On the side, he put the Brooklyn Bridge. The other side, we put the restaurant he started at, and on the front, we put my father. And on the website, we told the story about my dad. So instead of selling marinara sauce, we want to sell a story. Just like in multifamily, when you're raising and attracting money, what does my brother say? What's your story? Everybody's got a story. Whether it doesn't have to be you got to dig deep. What is your story? You went to college, you hated college. Why are you in multifamily? Everybody's got it. So that's what I did. I still didn't do it perfect because I was learning, but it really worked. And I put Gino's Trattoria on this. I put Vito's Finest by Gino's Trattoria. So I had the two websites. So the whole goal was, I always tell Chris, I want to drive traffic to both websites, have them see the story, and that's what we did. So Tatiana, was it pretty good what we did, or?
I love that. There's a story behind. There's that's really what sells. Story sells. Because if not, you're just a generic brand trying to sell a corporate sauce. Instead, you're selling a family heritage, legacy, and story, right? And to me, just by thinking of that, I already could think that the sauce is much more, I love marinara sauce, by the way.
It gives it, even him coming from Italy and in Brooklyn, because everybody's like, oh my God, Brooklyn's got the best pizza. So you're already like the psychology of it, where you talk about psychology, people, it's already a social proof and recognition that like, oh, he must be really good because he's from Italy, and his family, it's from the 80s, So that's what it's really digging in deep to branding and really, really learning stuff like that. So
yeah, it's important, and connecting them is going to be really big. For example, I like what you said about the website, right? Going into telling the story, and then connecting into, okay, now here's the sauce. It's important that when we build these stories, we think about the call to actions we want people to take. Because if not, and I have seen this before, we do audits of websites, and what I have seen before is people will have the story, but then what's the next step? Like if I'm ready to make a purchase, or if I want to go to a restaurant to buy it, right? Where do I go? Is there a phone number? Is there an email? So that's important too. It's important that although it won't be the main focus, it's important to be visible for the user.
You know what drives me crazy is I know people get stuff up, but like, and they do it quick and they got to save money. They do it themselves. When I see somebody like, he'll have his website and you click it and I don't know the guy and you just go on, it has like a picture of the buildings you said, generic, no picture of him. It talks about like the company, Invictus Capital or whatever. Like I'm just making up a name. And I'm searching down like, who is this? And I just wasted 5 minutes on the site clicking all different things and I still don't know who it is. Like what is going on here? Like who is this company? And then I got to go back to his Facebook page. I'm like, I know it's him, but how is he? What is he? So it's you kind of want to make it easy on the person when they go to your site, whether it's on the front page. I love Carlos's site. There's a picture of the family, the rolling video. You want to make it easy that when they go to the site, they know who you are, what it is. It's just clarity and speed. You don't want people going on and asking themselves question like, what is this? If they're asking that, that means you need to call your web person, rethink your strategy and your story. I think your story should be visible right away. Like, and then they get into the story and that's when they don't jump off the site. They start like not stalking, but clicking around like, oh, wow, that's cool. I want to check that. We can even see, I can see how many clicks and how long a person's on my site. Okay. So we track how many deep clicks, if they went to go buy whatever. I don't, but my web guy shows me, like, I don't have time to look. It's pretty cool. It's crazy what you could see and what we could get. It's really, when you get in depth, and Chris Jackson's a tech guy. He shows me like, hey, check out what this guy clicked and did on our site. It's like, whoa, you know, like now when I get on the phone with him, I already know he looked at 2 of our products. If he looked at our deals. So I already know a lot about this guy, and he probably might know that, but he probably doesn't know that. So it's very analytics is the way of the world. The big corps. I remember my buddy has a company, and he's in analytics. It was about 10 years ago, maybe, when it was starting to come around, and just saw how important it is. So it's something really great to learn that. So that's it. Thank you, Tatiana. Any questions out there? You know, ask her before we jump off. We got a few more minutes. Thank you, Valerie. But all right. One last thing. Yeah. So, you know, if you guys reach out to Carlos, reach out to her. Reach out directly to her if you want her, but just in case you don't have her information, like she put it up, you can reach out to Carlos. I'm excited for you guys to start. This has been great. I'm gonna, you know, after the recording, I'm gonna send it up to everybody and talk to everybody soon. I appreciate people coming on, and if you need anything, reach out.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Thank you, guys. Take care.
Thanks, guys.
Bye.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.